second of 3 general application webinars that we will be providing to stakeholders in the Delta region who are interested in applying for our Reimagining the Delta Workforce Development Capacity Building and Technical Assistance Fund. Today for this webinar, we will have Bevan Hunter, our Senior Advisor, as well as Emmanuel Edmond, our CDAP Program Manager, speaking with us about this fund, as well as how to apply for the fund and any eligibility requirements. So in looking at the agenda, we will begin with a description of the funding opportunity, and then move into award information, who should apply, and the appropriate use of funds. And then we'll move into basic eligibility requirements, application requirements, which will then include how you as an applicant can submit your application online through funding.dra.gov. Currently, all participants for this webinar are muted. If you have a question within the box, there's a place to raise your hand. You can also submit a question, and I will do my best to address your question or concern during the webinar. We will have Bevan and Emmanuel give their presentations and then move into a 15-minute question and answer session. If you have questions that arise throughout the webinar, feel free to type them in, and I will address those during the we will address those during the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. I think we are ready to go. So Bevan, if you would like to begin your presentation, you should be unmuted now.
Okay. Thank you, Spencer. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I am, like Spencer said, Bevan Hunter. I'm the Senior Advisor to the Federal Co-Chairman for the Delta Regional Authority. For those of you who have attended the summits that we've hosted so far, I've been at most of them, actually all of them, and we're very excited about what we are doing when it comes to workforce. Workforce has become an increasingly talked about conversation, be it Congress, White House, economic developers, everything. It's the new hot button issue, and DRA is very excited to be in that conversation and working in the region on this topic and being able to bring to you guys the opportunity for funds to help either those communities or community that has yet to begin the workforce planning, or for those who are already further along and have some other needs that they want to address as they move down the road to their workforce planning. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the summits themselves. We've hosted one in each of the 8 states so far. We have 2 states remaining. Next week we will be at Lake Barkley, Kentucky on October 7th. We'll be there from 9 to 3. For those of you in that area, please join us for that. You can register online for that as well. And then our last workforce summit will be in Carterville, Illinois at the John A. Logan College on October 29th. We'll be there from 9 to 3 as well. And Ted Abernathy, who is the co-author of Reimagining the Delta Workforce, will be at both of those sessions. His presentations during these summits are extremely important to the process that we're going to be talking about today. So as we move forward, I'm just going to talk to you about the funding opportunity that we have. This fund was created to build a competitive technical assistance and capacity building implementation investment program. So when you're looking at this Nofa, as you will see, there is opportunity for different aspects of funding. And we kind of refer to those as buckets. There's a bucket 1 and bucket 2. Bucket 1 is your community that has yet to do a workforce plan or hasn't really begun that conversation. They haven't their local elected officials have not been through any type of training, whether it's the ARC's certified communities or anything like that. That is the bucket 1 community. That is the community that can apply through this Nofa for funding to start that conversation, to figure out, to get those local leaders invested that you need to go attend the ACT Certified Ready training program or to do something else. Then there is what we refer to as the bucket 2, which is community or communities that are further along in their planning. Those are the folks that have already either are certified or they have a workforce plan for their region or for their community. They have established systems and they have already been working with business and industry and education, and they're looking to either broaden a plan, broaden technical assistance, or something else along those lines so that they can move their community or communities as their region forward through workforce. Spencer, can you go to the next slide, please? As you will see from the Nofa, from those of you who have attended the meetings, you have our Southern Growth Policy Board Reimagining Workforce Development book. If you don't have that book, please make a note in this webinar so that we can get a hold of your contact information and get you one of those books. This will help you in planning as well as anything else when it comes to the Nofa. As you can see, we have there are different categories when it comes to reimagining the workforce that we're talking about, which is reimagining readiness, reengaging disconnected youth and adult learners, realigning relationships and resources, and then the ramp up. And these are important. When it comes to the Nofa, we are looking for these categories. So when you are looking at filling out your application, are you looking at reengaging that section of the population, the youth that are back home on their parents' couches, not going to work, or just the disconnected adult learners who have been kind of phased out of this current workforce and need to be brought back in, taught a new skill, and then put back out into the workforce. And then other is, realigning relationships and resources, and then we have, again, the ramp up into the next phase. So please make sure that you have the book. If you don't, again, please contact us so we can get you the Workforce Readiness book, so that will help you with your Nofa application. The the approved uses for funds for the application, believe that, sorry, I'm having a little bit of, Spencer, I cannot see the slides anymore.
1 second, I think it's loading. My apologies.
Thank you. Okay. Again, as we move through this, thank you. I am going to turn this over in just a minute to Emmanuel Edmonds, who can talk to you about the description of the funding opportunities for you when it comes to applying what is eligible and what is ineligible. So I'm going to turn that over to Emmanuel.
Devin, we seem to be having some technical difficulties with the manual's audio, so if you don't mind talking through the benefits and then the award availability.
Sure. As far as I mentioned earlier, there are bucket 1 and bucket 2. Bucket 1, if it's, for those of you that are new communities, if it is a single community, there is the, you can apply for up to $50,000. If it is a multi-county, multi-region, and it can be more than one state, as long as those states are within the DRA region, can apply for this funding, and that can be up to $150,000 if it is a multi-county, it doesn't have to be multi-state, but as long as it can be multiple counties within a state, or it can be multiple states as long as it's within the DRA footprint. The application requirements of the Nofa are available on the website, as Spencer noted earlier. You can download the Nofa itself, as well as you can go online to start filling out your application. The funds, either you can apply for anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000. The time period available from start to finish is a 12-month period. However, the program does allow for up to 2 years as a maximum to use the funds. It is a limited funding pool of $1.7 million, and that's why the current pool, for those of you that are applying, the total number of awards are limited to 30. At this time, we don't know if there will be funding for next year. Right now, it is looked upon as a one-time funding stream for workforce development. And I don't want to speed too far into Emmanuel's information, but
Devin, we have Emmanuel on the phone now, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good afternoon again to everyone. As Bevan was stating, there are particular usage limitations on these funds. Just to reiterate, $50,000, up to $50,000 per applicant can be awarded for individual counties, and those who engage in serving a multi-county service area can receive up to an additional $100,000, which the total award could not exceed $150,000 per applicant. And reverting back to the specific usages for these funds, as Bevan stated earlier, limited portion of it can be used for technical assistance in planning, and that technical assistance is for those applicants who already have initiatives on the ground, so to speak, running already. Meeting space and materials, organizational and community training and development, along with required travel for facilitators and participants, and approved implementation support. These funds are restricted as far as the construction of buildings and anything dealing with construction and that nature, because they are RCAP funds. And those of you who are familiar with RCAP and RBOG understand that there's a limitation there. Okay. For a basic, I left out this part, excuse me. Of course, all eligible entities who can normally apply for CDAP funds are open and eligible to apply under this Nofa. And that would include, but not limited to, state and local governments, public bodies, and nonprofit entities. again, the exclusion there in most cases, in all cases, would be for-profit entities are not eligible under this note. Our application with this funding opportunity, we are strongly encouraging a review of the Nofa itself as well as the workforce development manual to put together your application. And in that, you will also notice that a strong emphasis is put on collaboration with several partners. For our application requirements, the application process, for those who are familiar with CDAP, is similar to the regular CDAP application process. The only area that it differentiates is the local development district is not the intermediary here. You will go directly to funding.dra.gov, and that will open the portal where LDD is normally checked for an application. DRA will be checked to complete the application. And as a part of the application, another difference is a letter of interest must be submitted with this funding opportunity or this application. And the one-page letter of interest should include planned actions around the report of reimaging the workforce development. Again, if you don't have one of those, we strongly encourage you to contact us so that we can get one to you. And you will draw from that to show your planned actions that are listed in that report. A detailed budget narrative along with feasibility of desired outcomes. The application must be signed and dated before submission. It will, as I recall, the portal will not allow you to submit it unless it is signed and dated. Continuing with the application requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you log onto or when you visit the DRA web portal, you typically will type in www.dra.gov, and you will scroll to the funding portal. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen is where it says, over with the blue headers, it says apply for federal resources. And it will, if you click on that, it will bring you to this screen, the opening portal screen. And if you have never applied for CDAP funds with DRA, you will need to create an account to begin an application. But if you already have applied for funds before, then you can use your regular login to start this application. The only difference this time would be DRA would be the LDD that's checked, or the intermediary that's checked. So you would create that, and the application is pretty much a straightforward process. As you walk through it, you will have to complete each section. There's a budget narrative, the summary, and it will not let you go any further until each one of those are completed. So as you walk through the application, you will see a button or a little blue button at the end of each section that's required, and you have to hit that button to move forward to the next section. And if you get to the end of the application and it does not submit, you generally, if there's an error, it will tell you what that error is, and you can scroll back to that portion and complete that portion, and it will submit. On the screen now you should see a snapshot of where you have to enter your application name, your project abstract, state, so on and so forth. And you'll see where it says Save Application at the bottom. You can save it. Once you save it, you can move to the next portion of the application. And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach us here at the office. The application requirements for this funding opportunity, the submission deadline is November 10th at 11:59 p.m. We anticipate distributing the notice of awards no later than November 21st of this year. Again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact us.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. We will now begin to address some of the questions that are posed or that have been posed. If you have a question, please feel free to type it into to the text box, and I will receive it and I'll address it, and then we'll answer the question. I also encourage everyone on the call to go to our Reimagining the Delta Workforce webpage, which has a link to frequently asked questions that have been addressed in the past 2 webinars, as well as those questions that have been addressed to our staff over the past 5 weeks since this funding opportunity was announced. And this is our way of ensuring that this is a level playing field and everyone has the information that is provided to each person who addresses a question to us. So the first question that was posed actually ties in perfectly with the last slide, and that is asking about the November 10th deadline. You may have noticed the change in the deadline. This was originally October 31st. Because of some scheduling issues with our workforce summits that had to be pushed back into October, we have extended the deadline to November 10th for applicants to submit their application, so that we can ensure that all states have an equal opportunity for pulling their application together and putting together the most competitive application that they can. So again, the deadline is now November 10th. That is not a typo. It was originally October 31st. However, we have pushed that back and extended it to November 10th to provide full opportunity for all of our states to apply for the funding. The next question posed is, could you please review the differences between Bucket 1 and Bucket 2 funding? And to address that, Bevan, if you don't mind, I am going to read directly from the question and answer space so that we ensure to give the most accurate information. So there are 2 categories or buckets that communities will fall into under this program. A community or multi-county region either falls in the first bucket, which are communities that have had no previous planning for workforce development and no training for their leadership, or the second bucket, those communities that have convened local leadership to begin the planning process and are working towards implementation of an established and approved plan. In the second case, this funding program will support implementation costs, although these costs must be considered eligible within the posted Nofa. And these implementation costs will address the established and approved plan of the community or multi-county region. The first bucket, communities will be eligible for applying for technical assistance and capacity building specifically for their leadership, so that they may empower their leadership to begin the planning process. These implementation expenses for the second case do provide some additional flexibility to those communities implementing an already designed plan, and that's something important to note. So as an overview, these 2 different buckets mean that communities, depending on which point in the planning process they are, should be applying for different types of activities to fund per this funding program. The next question we have is, are the funds only available for rural parishes, as this is an RCAP funding? Emmanuel and Bevan, can you address that, please?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I know this is RCAP funding, and we follow the guidelines set forth through that. It really kind of depends on on your location, but we do follow the RCAP guideline rules. I know that we have done some areas of larger of cities that have been deemed distressed. So
to clarify, it would be important to ask on a situational basis, because if a county or parish is not considered rural but can be considered distressed, there is an opportunity for them to receive funding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I believe that addresses that question. Another question is actually one that has been asked in a previous webinar. Do the counties and parishes within an application have to be contiguous? And if I may, I guess it was not posed. I was wrong in saying that. But Emmanuel or Bevan, do you have an answer to that question?
I would say as long as they do not have to be contiguous, as long as they are within the DRA footprint.
Okay. The next question is there a specific type of training that communities would need to have completed in order to qualify for that bucket 2 funding? Evan, do you have an answer for that?
Specific training, I would say no. One of the main reasons for this this Nofa is to get communities moving forward. Some communities in Kentucky and Missouri, for instance, they have begun participating. Some have not yet in the certified workforce. I did mention that earlier. We are to participate in bucket 2. I would say that a program like that, yes, would be considered bucket 2. Or for those of you that have come together as a region and are currently already working with your business and industry and your education folks, whether it's community college, four-year college, technical college, anything like that, on workforce programs within your community or region, I believe you would probably already be considered the second bucket. Formal training, no, but a plan and already being put in practice to be considered bucket 2, yes.
And Bevan, it may be prudent to point out the ACT program they can look at for that.
Yes.
Are you aware?
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who have not done the ACT program, which we can get you information on that as well if that's something that you want to apply for. I know that there's a class in September, I believe. I'm not sure exactly what the start date was on that. But moving forward, if there is a great interest, ACT is going to put together a class specific to the Delta region, and that would be for a community that has not done anything yet when it comes to workforce development, the training of your local leaders. There's a whole set of guidelines that ACT goes by. So it's a real buy-in from the community that's applying, and we can get you information on that as well.
Okay, the next question is there a preferred format for the letter of intent or letter of interest? You've requested that it speak to specific points, such as the Reimagining the Delta Workforce Report and the budget narrative. A one-page letter isn't a lot of room to address these, especially if the letter is to be formatted as a typical form letter. with a header salutation. So again, is there a preferred format for this letter of intent?
We have not established a preferred format. If we were looking to get a brief overview, we realize that it's a lot of information, but if that could be condensed into a paragraph or two, that will be fine, but there's no form, no particular format for that.
And then another question posed is, who can I call or where can I find information on which areas are considered distressed? To answer the first part of the question, I'll direct you to the slide on wrap-up and questions. Please email any questions that you may have beyond this webinar or that you realize that we did not address during this webinar and that are not available on the website. Please address those questions to our workforce email, which is deltaworkforce@dra.gov. Or if you have any questions, you can call either Bevan Hunter or me, Spencer Lucker, and we will do our best to process those questions. Emmanuel and Bevan, could you address the second half of that question? Where can I find which areas are considered distressed?
Actually, on DRA.gov, we have a listing of, well, we used to. Before, I know we're transitioning websites, but we do have lists of distressed and non-distressed counties and parishes within the 8-state region. If you could just email the deltaworkforce@dra.gov, we can email you that list.
Okay. Next question is the letter of intent due prior to November 10th, or is the letter of interest to be submitted together with the application? There's a little confusion there.
Well, the letter of interest should be submitted with the application, and one thing that was omitted when I was speaking was that letter can be uploaded with any other supporting documentation. There's a section in the application where you can upload a PDF. Scan that PDF and attach it to the application, and it will be printed with the application.
Okay, those are the questions that have been submitted. I'll give a few seconds for anyone to submit another question. Would a multi-program initiative specifically established to apply for Bucket 1 funding need to be incorporated and accepted by the IRS as a 501c3, or could a startup apply for funding?
Under our funding guidelines, it must already be designated as a 501c3 or other nonprofit status. If in this circumstance, it already has to be designated as one.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, and Milton, please let me know if I get this incorrect, but if there is any required travel that can be worked into the budget, is that eligible to be part of the budget narrative?
It is eligible.
So a travel budget would be eligible?
Yes.
And then another question is, who is the applicant, or who would be designated the applicant when there are several entities involved?
Bevan, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I do believe in one meeting I was in that a lead agency will be chosen, or lead applicant needs to be chosen. I don't know how that would be worked out among co-applicants, but
Right.
it only has to be one applicant.
I would say that quite possibly if there are multiple co-applicants and the local development district is one of those applicants and it's all within their area of service, it might be easier on all to let the local development district be the lead since they have experience filling out applications and working with DRA. Emmanuel?
That would be the easiest route. And keeping in mind that the LDD would not take technical assistance if they are the lead applicant or if they assist in putting together the application.
Okay, Milton actually had a follow-up question. So asking how much would you suggest should be budgeted for the travel, or do you have a suggestion?
Is this for the certification or to go to these classes?
Yeah, I believe, yes, he's asking in reference to specific training programs that would be available.
Ask him to send that to deltaworkforce@dra.gov, and we'll get in touch with ACT to get him an actual estimate.
Great. Okay. Another question is, if multiple collaborators submit an application, does the application have to address the same issue, or do the collaborators have to address the same issue?
Again, going back to collaborations, it is most prudent for a lead agency to submit an application and go from there, particularly if you're going to go through the LDD. But it would not, it would behoove you to submit one application showing the collaboration as opposed to several applications with different objectives or several applications with the same objective, because it will not be viewed as one application. It will be viewed as different applicants.
Okay, that is all the time we have. Thank you, everyone, for your patience with us and for your interest in this funding opportunity. There were a few more questions that we don't have time to address. However, we will make sure to follow up with those individuals, as well as make available on our website through the frequently asked questions. We will be updating the webpage within this week to have the updated questions and answers that were addressed today on the webinar. We will also be uploading a recording of the webinar this week to the website in case you would like to review what has been discussed. Again, any questions that you have moving forward before November 10th, please feel free to reach out to us at deltaworkforce@dra.gov. I'd also like to remind those on the call who are from Kentucky or Illinois, or from a state close to either of those locations, that we will be having our workforce summits in Kentucky on October 7th, that is next Tuesday, and then in Illinois on October 29th. The October 7th in Kentucky will be at Lake Barkley State Resort Park. Registration can be done actually on the same webpage for Reimagining the Delta Workforce. There's a link to the Kentucky event, as well as for the Illinois event, which will be held at John A. Logan College in Carterville, Illinois. Again, thank you for joining us today, and any questions, please direct to deltaworkforce@dra.gov. Bevan, Emmanuel, do you have any other comments to add?
No.
No, just thank you all for being on the call.
Great, thank you.